So I've briefly touched on the topic of nostalgia in videos in the past, namely my videos on both the Backrooms and Shipwreck 64. Nostalgia is a great tool to use when it comes to the horror genre, and one good example of this is the use of older consoles or processing systems. Coming from a time where a decent chunk of people playing the game would have possibly used these in their childhoods. Examples like the older Windows systems, the Nintendo 64, and the PlayStation 1 or 2. The main chunk of horror that this brings is a lot more of the seeing something from a time full of joy and happiness get twisted into something horrid and terror-inducing, which can add a lot more to the fear factor than, I don't know, a fucking Nintendo Switch. And since today is March 10th, also known as Mario Day, today we'll be diving into the Nintendo 64. Specifically a ROM hack for the original Super Mario 64 titled B3313. Now, there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of different options that I could have talked about for this video specifically. However, my reasons for picking B33 specifically is because, unlike a lot of my other options, B33 likes to take a more subtle approach to itself. Things are changed just slightly enough as to where you know something is definitely wrong here, especially as we'll go on and things get weirder and weirder. However, not too much as to where it begins to tread into the cliche, creepypasta blood splatter PNG zone. But I'm not gonna yap on about it for any longer, namely because this hack is absolutely fucking massive. Oh, and also if you wish to play the hack for yourself, I'll be leaving a link to its download page in the description of the video, plus the emulator that I use to run the game. But without further ado, I feel like this hack is one best to just experience, so let's get right into it. Also, one last note, yes, I know I'll get there in a minute. First of all, spoilers for the whole hack, obviously, but after this video, I heavily suggest going and watching the video that Ducklegs made on the hack. While I was originally suggested to make a video on the hack by a fan of the channel, their video is what made me really decide to make a video on it specifically. And lastly, the game kind of has this LSD dream simulator vibe to it, where the best way to play is to just kind of pick a direction and go. So, of course, I'm not going to have every single little detail in this video. Instead, it's going to be rather more of a little narration of my own playthrough and the parts that I just personally found to be really interesting. Okay, that is all. Now let's get right into it. So, straight off the bat, I have a confession to make. I've never actually played any version of SM64. So for me personally, I set my goal of this ROM to be collecting at least 25 stars, as well as of course see some of what is called plot points by the community surrounding the ROM. I did manage to get both of these goals, however for the points which I wasn't able to find but still want to talk about, I will be of course crediting the footage that I use right here. And I know 25 isn't a lot, especially seeing as in the original game you need about 70 to beat the original SM64, but I'm not the best at platformers, and as I will come to learn, SM64 is definitely not an exception to that, but in my playthrough, I only just barely managed to meet that goal. Immediately loading up the game, the save file track had been put into a minor key instead of the regular major key. And loading into the front of the castle, instead of being greeted by the regular intro, we just get a text box simply stating, "Welcome to Mario Wonderland. If you're the adventurous sort, pay a visit to the castle ahead." So as soon as we set our foot into the door of this game, we know that things are definitely different around here, and instead of going straight into the castle, which also has its fair share of differences from the regular game, I decided to go around the back and found Yoshi just standing around, who gave me an oddly on-the-nose greeting. "Welcome to a new adventure. There are so many worlds to visit, but so little time. You may be wondering where to go first, right? Just let it happen, like a dream. Hint, look at the sky inside the castle if you have 10 power stars, and you might see the world shift right in front of your eyes. And remember that you can switch plumbers here by pressing the L button. Can you hear the princess calling? I know you are brave, but please don't try to find out what rests beyond that passage. It's not part of the show. Good luck." And of course we're going to immediately disregard this warning, and checking out the sign gives us, "Is it even worth trying to warn you?" Oh god, I wish I listened more. We find ourselves in this long dark tunnel lit by only red torchlight. Traveling down the red carpet, we go for a hidden warp leading us to what is titled the Void. And well, you don't need to be a genius to guess how that got put together. The area is large and dark, and walking in the direction we are spawned in leads us to 2 red flames, a massive hole behind which, and another sign. This time, this one is a lot more significant to us. Back at it again, I see old friend. Escaping reality again. You know, you really have me worried sometimes. Sometimes you take this game too seriously. Are you feeling okay? You know you could always turn off this game. But both of us know that you're still trapped inside your own walls, aren't you? Once again, the significance of this whole area isn't something known to us as of right now, but try to keep it in the back of your mind as we play through the game. We'll be coming back to it later on. After being put to the start, I decided it's time to go explore the inside of the castle. Also, seeing as the other two doors around the back were blocked, I really had nowhere else to go. The inside of the castle is this beta version of the lobby from the original SM64, and there's actually 5 different versions of this lobby, as you'll come to see, where the doors will shift and lead to different paintings and rooms. However, as of right now, there's only 2 of these available to us, as we don't have any red stars yet. While yellow stars can be used to unlock their respective star doors, red stars are what we must collect in order to gain back parts of Mario moveset, as well as to win the hack. When we gain more red stars, a few different things will begin to happen. The first of which, after gaining your first red star, we gain access to those other lobbies as well as those locked doors from before. We gain the ability to long jump as well as some other parts of our moveset. From this point on, the more red stars that you collect, the more doors will open to you, and the more of your moveset you will just gain back over time. I managed to get my first 2 yellow stars at this area titled Snow Slider, which also has multiple versions to it. A large majority of the courses you will find in the game also have different alternative versions of them that you can find from other paintings or hubs. These separate versions will only have very minuscule changes made to them, usually things like the music having a different instrument or warps leading somewhere else or things being missing. Things which you wouldn't really notice until you realized they were being changed. After this, I grabbed a few other stars from 2 other paintings, and then I ran to this level. Which, keep an eye on this painting. It will become significant to us for 2 very different reasons very soon. While actually in this level, I ended up figuring out that my emulator has a button which resets the whole ROM, so I ended up back at the castle front again. This time, however, it was nighttime and all the water had been drained. Doing a little bit more exploration, I ended up finding this side door leading to a completely different part of the castle. And here's where the fun started. Going through the left door, I found myself in what is called Bowser's Maze, and originally this used to be home to another plot point where it was originally called Mario's Maze. This was in a previous update before they obviously ended up taking it out of the ROM. And at the end would stand a red star. Trying to get to the end of this tunnel would lead to these faceless Marios coming out to attack the player, and if they caught you, then you'd either instantly die or have your game crash. But now here, in the most recent version of the game, I ended up jumping down this pipe into the Cooper sewers. A large, vaguely empty area where you can actually find another plot point. One which I managed to get footage of later on in my playthrough. After traveling a far bit into the sewers, you can come across this shadowy form of Mario. And very similar to the faceless Mario, this version will show up at other parts of the hack and either stand around and look creepy, or chase you away from certain areas or red stars. And in this area specifically, we can find the figure sat around a bunch of construction blocks, and once getting close enough, the figure will wake up and will cause the game to crash. Coming back to the current time in footage, however, I ended up falling into a hole and fast traveled back to the beta lobby, where I then ran until I found myself in this outer courtyard area full of booze. This area is known as the Uncanny Courtyard, and if I'm being honest, the word uncanny is a good one to use to describe this hack. And yes, I know the words uncanny and liminal are words that can be thrown around a lot, especially in today's time. But both words are pretty good at describing the emptiness that this hack has at times. The more you explore, the more you'll begin to see the extreme difference between levels which are bustling with life and areas where even the music isn't there. This version of the courtyard specifically has 2 other variants, Windy and Crimson, both being activated either by warps or by jumping into the fountain. And while Super Mario 64 isn't a game that scares me, even so in these ROM hacks meant to be at least somewhat spooky, this windy variant of the courtyard just felt wrong to me. As if something was watching me that I couldn't quite see. Kinda like in the way you know something bad is happening if the forest goes quiet. Anyway, I found Bowser and got my first and only red star. Yes, I said my only. In the time I've spent playing through this game, it's only become increasingly clear to me that if I wanted to get anywhere near to beating this game on my own, I wouldn't be able to get this video out in time for Mario Day. And while I will be, of course, playing the game in my own time trying to beat it, there was no way I was going to be able to find any other red stars. especially seeing as a lot of my footage that I've been cutting out looks like this. I'm sure you guys can understand, and I'll of course still be going over the ending and things which I think are personally significant to the plot of this game, because yes, there is definitely plot going on here. After grabbing the red star, I was put into this darker hub area lit by blue flame, grabbed a few more stars, and began noticing that certain objects and effects weren't really in the right place. I mean, there's this gap here seemingly in the shape of a pool, and yet there's no water. The tower is hanging off the edge, and I don't see any grass for that flower to be growing out of. After collecting a few more stars, I headed off for the day, and when I got back on the next- don't look at that. I headed down into that side door again, and this time heading down under this hole in the floor into a water zone. I found a cap in this strangely crunchy looking tunnel, allowing me to travel through these bars and grab another star, leading me to now have 11 stars in total. Coming back to that strange checkerboard place, I found myself at a room containing 3 of the same painting, just with separate color palettes. Once again changed, but just barely, by a small variable. Jumping into any of these portals leads to the exact same place where we can find a sick-ass Koopa shell and a few extra stars. And once again, objects were really out of place. I mean, where is this bridge going to? It doesn't make any sense. After having the same track blasted into the wall of my skull, I went back to traveling, eventually finding this mirror room with a small cage on the other side, which actually turned out to be a big boo. I wasn't able to do anything with it, so I ended up traveling to what I ended up calling in my notes the Big Hole Bowser Room. And traveling for the door labeled 1, I ended up in a variation of Big Boo's haunt called Big Boo's Haunted Forest, where I was greeted by the text box, "Hehe, you're mine now, hehe. I'll pass through this wall. Can you do that?" Hehe. And apart from doing a bit of small exploration, I found out that I actually couldn't do that, since in order to get out of here, it required me to use this cat box, which I hadn't actually unlocked yet. So of course, I was back at the castle ground again. This time, I headed back to that side, and taking the door on right led me to this strange bricked basement with another track that had just barely been altered, before I ended up jumping down another warp and ending up in another Bowser fight, this time rewarding me with just a regular yellow star instead of a red one, and putting me in this odd green prison area which I couldn't find a way out of, and reset back to the castle front again. This time finding myself going around the back and entering this light blue area of the castle which had a fucking ghost toad in the corner. I jumped into another painting, leading me to this really nice looking beach zone, which once again just brings back that difference in areas. The music feels full of life here, like this could actually be an official Mario level. I collected a few more stars before moving on, getting tricked by these photos of Peach and ending up at a... Oh god! I gotta retrace that part. Luckily, this is the only time in the whole entire, like, hack where something this on the nose happens. Wasn't expecting to ever have to retract my statement about a blood splatter PNG. This is one of many warps that will send us to this red, foggy version of the beta lobby where it's a lot bigger and there's a lot more to explore here. However, it's pretty easy to get back to the main lobby, and continuing our search, I went back to that checkered area and tried out some more zones, ending up in this other really nice looking area, which led me to the roof of the castle where Yoshi was once again waiting for us. "What are you doing up here? You should be looking for the princess." So, we're still on the look for the princess? In all of these strange environmental changes and things being clearly wrong in nearly every way, we're still tasked with looking for the princess? I mean, I guess it never really did give us an intro. After this, I ended up just exploring a bunch of worlds, grabbing stars. Nothing big or of note really happened for a while, so I don't really feel the need to include them in the script. However, after a while, I found myself on the roof again, and after re-entering the castle, got blasted by this deafening silence before jumping down into a pit and being told that I'm not worthy. Apparently, in order to be worthy, I needed at least 33 stars. But instead I got sent to the original lobby from SM64? This toad seems to think it is. What do you mean it keeps changing? The castle's always looked like this. Leaving the castle? What are you talking about? There's nothing out there. This castle is all there is. You've always been here. Gaslighting Toad aside, attempting to leave the castle is futile and just leads us to other areas, including booze, that Peach trap from before, or a darker version of the lobby. Leaving again brings us to this pitch black hallway with only one door on the other side. Going through, we find a set of rooms which just seem slightly too big than they should be, and blocks and poles being placed willy-nilly all over the place, with things only getting worse and worse as we go on, having to literally climb up the stairs at certain parts. Eventually, I found myself at this long dark hallway, no end in sight till we start walking, where the figure of Bowser begins to fade into view. Getting close enough, we are killed and sent, well, I don't really know, I ran out of lives. I began to travel once more, again getting to Big Boo's haunt, where he really liked to relay the message, "Ghosts don't die." Can you get out of here alive? After collecting a few stars in what is possibly one of my favorite levels, I ran into something that, I'm not going to lie to you, scared the fucking shit out of me just due to how out of nowhere it was. Before jumping into another painting, I was spooked by how silent the area had become, and after falling down into a pit, I assumed that the area was just looping itself. It had been so long since I'd seen this shadowy figure that I completely forgot that he was a thing, and that came back to haunt me. Kinda like what happened next, where I jumped into this portal in the basement. The fucking painting came off of the wall. The painting came off of the wall and crashed my game. This event, as it would turn out, was only caught on footage due to my horrible sleep schedule. While playing the ROM, it actually goes and checks the time of day you're playing the ROM at. If it is nighttime, then the following changes may occur. The castle grounds will have a night-themed background after loading a save file. You can actually reset this back to being a dusk sunset form if you choose to leave the beta lobby. Most outdoor levels will have a darker sky, and a lot of levels will have a music box version of their usual theme. The vanilla lobby will have a completely different Starry Night aesthetic, and a unique yellow toad will be present. Meaning that Gaslight Toad was right, that is the vanilla SM64 lobby. The basement to the vanilla lobby will turn into Big Boo's haunt theme. Additionally, as the wiki likes to put it, the player may find a nasty surprise waiting for them. AKA, big bad painting coming off of the fucking wall. There's a Toad NPC in the Bowser's Castle level who will not give you a star unless you speak to him at night, and both levels Bomb on Battlefield Beta and Ice Cold Warzone will not have active cannons during the night, meaning that the levels are slightly easier. There's also these library areas that state that they have an opening and closing time for deliveries. However, nobody knows what it fucking means. But, as it would turn out, my stupid sleep schedule is useful for something. Back to the exploration again, I found myself back at the dark version of the lobby. While ground pounding into the sun in the middle of the room, I unfortunately lost a horrible chance and got sent to the dark version of the challenge lobby, where the areas which doors would usually be are now bricked up and I only have one direction to go in, leading to this absolute horrible garble of polygons and bad architecture. Out of every room I encounter in this playthrough, this is by far the worst room layout I encountered for its jankiness and making no fucking sense. All the while this horrid jarbled track plays over everything and Peach can be heard calling out in the distance, which I think was actually being caused by another plot point being called Peach's Ghost, a semi-transparent version of Peach which may appear every now and then and call out to Mario, a reminder of who we're trying to find. For my final piece of footage I recorded of the game, I only had 5 stars left to get to meet my goal. I travelled through that spooky tunnel to get sent to the vanilla lobby and then to this monochrome looking version of the lobby. At least, for its wallpaper. Through a brief water zone and out into this grassy indoor garden area, into a library, I saw him again. And down a tunnel into a separate lava section that I ended up grabbing another star from and getting sent back to Checkerland. Explored a bit more, found Pleasant Falls, probably another contestant for one of my favorite music tracks. It hasn't fucking changed. At this point of exploration, I kind of realized that everything was basically becoming one variable different each time, or that something was completely unrecognizable. And it started to make me feel as if I was going insane playing this hack, and made it my goal to get these last 4 stars as fast as humanly possible. Which I ended up grabbing another one from here, another one from a level close by, and then found a room with some boxes covering up a hole in the mirror, so I could enter this mirror world and go back to that boo with the cage in it from earlier in the video. The cage inside sent me to this red foggy room, however I ended up entering a wrong door and got sent back to the uncanny courtyard again. While trying to make my way back, I took a few wrong turns and ended up in what is probably the game's worst case of a track just being slightly different each time. And oh look! It's another lobby variant! If I don't get these stars soon, I swear to God. Conflicted between 2 openings, I decided to go into this pipe near the Peach portrait, and oh look! Another lobby variant! And oh look, I'm back at the beta lobby! Luckily, the door is a 2-way, and I traveled through a pipe next to the Bowser portrait, ending up in this massive expanse of a zone and into this weird prison full of toads and bomb-oms, and Ghost Peach was there too, and eventually all led to this. You're fucking kidding me, right? Hopping into a hole in the wall, What is this? At this point, I was tired of constantly running around the castle, feeling like I was going in loops and not actually finding anything of worth, and this? Oh, what the heck, let's climb into this clock. I'm sure it will be better in there. Take me back to the start. Take me back. I don't want this. I feel like the more and more I delve into this hell, the more and more the levels derail. I mean, look at this! Why are there so many enemies on a slide level? I got the fucking bim bam boom. Ah. I went back to the mirror room and hopped back into the big boo cage, and this time walking down this tunnel that I suspiciously wasn't allowed to see the end of, I found myself in a sudden water level with no air pockets. Swimming around a bit, I found these cubes? Diamonds? I don't know, they drained the water and I was able to collect a star from here. Next. For my final star, I traveled down to that side basement area again and found myself in the calmest map I'd ever found myself in. The music was calm, the level was nice, and I got my final star. I was done with this insane fucking ROM. Now, before I start going a bit more in-depth here, I want to talk about some of the important things that I didn't end up finding. These are just some plot points which I think are major to the lore. And of course there are more which I don't talk about, which are in the game just in case you want to go and find them yourself. If you want to torture yourself like that. But these are just the ones that I really liked the sound of and just think they're pretty significant. Like for Shadowy Mario, occasionally in certain areas you'll find these faceless Marios which will chase after the player. One of the parts which I think the soundtrack especially excels in are these parts of the hack where you're being chased, as the hack allows for a lot of downtime in between these segments, so when a track like the one I'm about to show you suddenly hits your ears, it's really good for inducing panic in the player. During your time exploring, you may come across levels like Hazy Maze Cave where you're given a text prompt stating, "You have reached an incomplete area. Turn off your system now." After a while of standing still, you'll be instantly killed by an unseen force. We'll speak more of this soon. Throughout the hack, you can find these cubes titled as cores. Approaching one, if it isn't being guarded by a faceless Mario, the text "Destroy it" will flash on screen. Destroying these cores is as simple as just touching them in any way, and once you do so, the game will crash. The mutant Toad can be found in both the silent sewers and the unsettling maze. If the player is to come too close to the Toad's proximity, then... I will also admit that it does look kinda goofy. In a certain part of the hack, you can come across this area where both a drowned Mario and Luigi can be found with the text "It hurts" flashing on screen. Coming too close results in a game crash. Going behind the waterfall will lead you to a location titled Shame, a pitch black room with a singular sign. What have you done? You. All of you. Shame. Shame, 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 shame. There's two different versions of this room. There's the one that you can get from going behind the waterfall, and the one that you get from a map that we'll be talking about later on. There's an area called Star Road with 5 pipes in it, and if you go down the number 4 pipe, you'll end up in another variation of Shame, where the sign just simply says Shame. In the level Moto's Factory, you can find the scene of Luigi being repeatedly crushed by a large crusher. A Shadow Mario nearby watching on. Getting too close causes the Shadow Mario to begin chase and of course crash the game if touching the player. And then of course we have the endings. One final spoiler alert of course. After beating the final Bowser fight, we attempt to grab the Warp Star before being warped to a level titled Beginning. Jumping down a pipe, we end up at the ending castle grounds where Peach's ghost awaits us so that she can congratulate us before sending us to the monochrome castle ground. At this point we have 3 different options ahead of us. The first of which being we can enter the front door and continue through the monochrome castle, through the world of darkness, a horrible jarbled world of items and objects, going through a door labeled 1 at the back to enter Star Road and get introduced to the game's main tagline. Welcome to the Star Road. 5 pipes, 5 challenges. Will you play the game? Or will the game play you? At this point we can go through any of the 5 pipes, including the 0th pipe. Yes, you heard me right, the 0th pipe. And from what it seems like, this is just additional endgame content. This isn't really an ending here. So we come back to our fork in the road, and what's next? If we choose to go around to the side of the castle, we can find a hole in the side of the castle, where we find ourselves inside the walls. An endless void where the text "Get me out" flashes over and over with Luigi chasing after us, his body disfigured, and if he catches us, the game crashes. All the while, the patronizing track of the merry-go-round plays in the background. That's not really an ending either. If we choose to exit the monochrome lobby, the doors will seal themselves and we're then forced to go around the back of the castle with the doors blasted off their very hinges. At this point, we enter the Victorious Consequences, another horrible amalgamation of items, however, we won't be here for long. Once entered, we're forced to look towards a mysterious entity. Their only word? Shame. We are then killed and the game crashes. That's it? After all of that, that's it? All of that just for it to repeat over and over again. All that hard work and effort only to have it erased with such an anticlimactic ending? Yes, while the ending itself may seem bad or anticlimactic, let me tell of how it really makes sense more than any other ending could dream of being. Have you ever heard of the phrase, "Every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized"? While it's kind of been memed on and there's multiple copy pastas going out about the whole "oh, every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized" thing, B3313 is the very embodiment of this phrase. That feeling of being watched, the slight variable changes, those cores, how things in places that don't make any sense at all are just there. Well, that is the work of the personalization AI, and the constant loop it forces the Mario Bros to go through. Anytime we see this text pop up, AI. The slight crunch on the textures and seemingly infinite abundance of levels, AI. And the AI isn't this simple character, oh no. Oh no 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 no. This thing is so fucking confusing and complex. On the one hand, we have this side of the AI which is in pain. It's being forced to crank out more and more levels the more we explore. It's why the more we collect these stars and the better and faster we do so, the more fucked up our environments become. The AI is being worked out and it's beginning to pain it to keep cranking out these levels. So much so that some levels are just barely different from one another, where only an AI could notice a change so insignificant. We're told to destroy these AI cores by the AI itself, essentially stopping the game and putting the AI to rest. Anytime we load up the game, it is once again awoken into pain and suffering. However, at the same time, we see this AI longing to infinitely torture the Mario Bros, putting them under crushers, drowning them, turning friendly faces into these horrid abominations to chase after them, and even attempts to block us from the same cores it wants us to destroy. The entirety of the hack has been about this AI from the start. I mean, think about the very first thing I talked about. Please don't try to find out what rests behind that passage, it is not a part of the show. Is it even worth trying to warn you? Back at it again, I see, old friend. Escaping reality again. You know, you really have me worried sometimes. Sometimes you take this game too seriously. Are you feeling okay? You know you can always turn off this game, but both of us know that you're still trapped inside your own walls, aren't you? The AI has been talking to us this entire time and it knows that we've been here before. And these signs serve as the one and only note that it would know the player will go to read. The only place that it tells us not to go to. This relationship between the player and the AI itself is very complex, and the infinite cycle that I definitely did not expect to come from a Super Mario 64 ROM hack, and I am so glad that I took the time to look into this hack. While I won't promise I'll go looking for more or that I'll end up playing some other Super Mario 64 ROM hack in the future, B3313 was a fun experience throughout, for the most part. B3313 being my first ever ROM hack of Super Mario 64, or well, my first introduction to SM64 in general, is something that I both love and hate. Playing the hack, I loved the loop of build-up between exploration and finding new plot points and the realization of the AI behind the whole thing, but at the same time, I feel like there may never be another hack to live up to the subtlety and storytelling that the hack has. It's very obvious that this hack has been worked on for a long time, and the dedication needed to make something on this scale is absolutely unbelievable. I heavily suggest you go and try to find some of the things that I missed. There's over 400 different stars to collect, so I'm sure it will keep gifting you new content for quite some time. But as always, that will be all from me this week. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I loved making it, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.